All right, so that's Start the Riot by JT33. Thanks everyone for joining. I just sent out notifications via email and text message, so I assume everyone's going to be dropping by momentarily. All right, and yes, we are live, as you can see on the screen. 1-833-311-1984. We have a better phone system. In fact, everything's better. We've been building back better. You know, we spent so much time studying the New World Order and how it works, and I think maybe we've all learned something from this. I know I have. I'm like, okay, so I just have to take some time and, restructure everything, build back better. So I've actually been planning for what I'm calling a reset. And by reset, I mean I'm starting over in certain ways, improving things. We're not stopping though. We're not taking a break. But this entire week is just a reset of everything that this channel is focused on. We have to make sure that we're not wasting time, energy, or resources in unproductive directions. So I want to go through some of the things that will pretty much make up this reset, as I'm calling it. So there's a few things. First of all, the phones. And I talked about this yesterday. In fact, earlier today we tested the phones out. I had someone call in last night as well. What's different about the phone system? Well, there's no annoying Google Phones ring, and you don't have to call 50 times to get through if somebody else is in line in front of you, has a queue. You can also leave your hate mail or tips by voicemail, which I also get by transcription. And finally, and this is the most important thing, and this is the major upgrade, because I've been trying to make this happen for almost a year now. Skype is the devil. Zoom is clunky, but Ring Central is perfect. I can do audio conferencing, which means that my guests and many of the guests that I have scheduled for later in the month are authors and other individuals who maybe you want to ask them questions directly instead of having it get mediated through the chat room and myself. So again, I'm going over the great reset for Infinite Plane Radio, and I'm calling this the Infinite Plan. So the plan again is to improve everything, solidify formats, and set up a stable and predictable course to take this into the future. Like we know now, I think it's clear that we're not censorable, so that's not even going to happen. We lost 3 YouTube channels last week. Did we lose a single listener? No. It doesn't make a difference. We just spawn new heads. So the phone system, yes, that's been improved, and it's the same exact number, so from your end, nothing changes. It just improves. Then the second part, this is the website. If you go to infiniteplane.media, which, Infinite Plane Media, the reason why we have this is that last year when everybody started going along with the lockdowns, we set it up as, well, they said that you're considered to be, well, essential if you're media, which I just thought, what do you mean? The people from the media are exempt because they're what? They're somehow more essential than we are. And so I started issuing out press passes, and we haven't stopped. And so Infinite Plane Media is here for those who are out in the field who are reporting in. Callers, regular callers to Infinite Plane Radio, and there's a number of them if you listen to the archives, which I'll be putting a lot of the archives from this summer up this week for the hours that I'm not on here, just to go through some of this, because we did consolidate a good decentralized media network. We had Ground Zero reporters in Seattle, at Yorba Linda, and at several of the hospitals. And this is part of the whole program anyway. We want real reporting to do, well, to fact check the media, reality test their claims. We were doing fact checking before they started fact checking. Before Twitter bots or Twatter bots, we were already fact checking them. So anyway, yes, the press passes are available here. This was what I think broke the spell for who knows how many people. Certainly weakened it. I mean, the case has been made that the media is prone to atrocity propaganda. Okay, so next, Infinite Plane Media also is going to be, and it's not here now, this is what I'm developing this week, it's also going to include a more systemized listing of all the different contributors and musicians and how to find them. I have a separate listing, but I want to merge it with the site. And then we're also doing a show clock, which if you follow my work over there at the Dark Matter Network, one of the things that I've done is you have the 24/7 stream and a corresponding box that tells you what's live, what's now playing. And if I were to patch in, it would say so. And then below, it tells you hour by hour, what's in the list of upcoming podcasts or songs or whatever. So I want to incorporate something like this into Infinite Plane Radio. More podcasts. I have a few other ideas as well along these lines, but let's get to the next section. So anyway, the primary website will be better suited also for artists, musicians, to even share links. That's something else. We have a forum. So the home page directs you straight to the IPS public forum, where all of the topics that we discuss, like Justin Bieber, Is He the Weeknd, Patricia Steere and Robbie Davidson are now Axion Earthers. I don't know who wrote that. Axion Earthers. What is that? Did Stanley Kubrick direct 9/11? Mark Gauld's Sending a Flat Earther to Space. Restless Bears anti-NWO merch. Anyway, you're free to post whatever, links to your social media. It's a public networking site. So we have our Discord server, which is great, but as you know, it moves fast. And if a topic is happening in the morning, it's going to be buried by the evening. So I'm importing a lot of our good content over here to the forums. So that's the main focus of this page, though. It's the forums with links to the archives on the right. By the way, the picture of Elon Musk with Jeffrey Epstein, and I think that's Spike Lee and Ashton Kutcher. Now that's weird, considering I thought he was against trafficking. Well, no, actually, no, it doesn't matter. It turns out it's a Photoshop. Just a heads up here. I don't want anybody to spread any misinformation. Okay, again, the artists, musicians, they all have their websites, they all have their Teespring, but I thought, a good way to consolidate it would just be to use the forums. And I'm also going to import that Word doc. Okay, and next, again, I'm going through everything that is incorporated in the Great Reset this week. Breaking news briefs. So one of the sites that we have that it just went stagnant, haven't been able to do much with it. We're just basically holding this place, and it's been viewed, 23,000 hits, not that many, autohoax.com, where we were attempting to archive all of the deepfakes, all of the PSYOPs, past and present, real time. I mean, it was a work in progress, but unfortunately, Russian bots destroyed the forum. So I paid Wiki, I think it was called Wiki Sites or something. Anyway, they gave me a refund, and then the Russian bots came back. So I kind of gave up on it. So I think the site was attacked. But we're bringing this back, not necessarily the site, but the idea of having an archive of hoaxes, real-time hoaxes, a listing of crisis actors. Like you can see now why we were targeted to be, removed, because that's exactly what we were doing. Autohoax.com, official archives of the Autohoax Army, unveiling the deception on all fronts, PSYOPs, deepfakes, fake deep space. So we're bringing this back, but it's going to be in a more concise format. And the way I'm doing it, I'm taking a cue from NPR, which is like our arch nemesis, IPR, NPR. And what we're doing is a podcast format that incorporates news briefs, breaking news, whatever it is, on at certain times. And these will go into the feeds. And so it's just part of keeping ourselves the most informed on these things as they develop, as we usually are and have been. I mean, really, as a think tank, we've been prescient. Okay, there's a couple of things I have to go through here. Okay, that's something else also. I'll get into this in a bit, but I am interested in recruiting bloggers as well as newsreaders possibly too. So there's going to be a show clock calendar. I'm streamlining the archives because they're kind of scattered. Sometimes they go into the library, but then the YouTube account associated with the auto importing library account gets shut down because I hurt somebody's feelings. So it's kind of scattered. It's there. There are redundancies, but it needs to be in one place. So I'm also working on streamlining the archives going back to 2017. Next, print is not dead. So Infinite Plane Media is also going to have a print newspaper. I have an excellent print-on-demand site that I've used before, and the format is tabloid. And I'm looking at doing essentially uncensored, unregulated, twice monthly. And there's quite a lot we can do with it. We've talked about this in Discord at length, and I have the plans, I have the templates, we have examples, so that's something else. And these aren't things that are going to really cost that much more to implement. Something else, the whole vision, anyway, the whole idea of Infinite Plane Radio, it's going to be clarified, what exactly it's about, and who we are, where it came from, etc. And I want to do more with, like I said, the musicians. I want to have specific hours designated for music, live streams, and then podcasts. So pre-recorded stuff will have certain hours. And I will have a schedule which will not really vary. So that's something else. Finally, South Pole. South Pole has kind of taken a back seat for the last couple of weeks because my computer can't do it anymore. I have well, the computer lasted for a good 7 episodes, so I have no complaint. It's a Chromebook, but there's no way it can maintain the pace, and so I'm actually having to order a computer that can handle a 20-minute episode a week. The last one just wasn't fast enough. It made the cut for 7 episodes. It was 8. I think we might be on 9. But what we are going to do after episode 13 is we're going to consolidate it, balance the audio, throw in some insert shots, and more narrator to clarify it so that someone could watch it start to finish and not get lost. It would all make sense, as surreal as it is if you jump into the middle of it. Okay, something else. This week, I'm also taking time off to continue editing, completing the edit on Conspiratained. And I wanted to explain the purpose of Conspiratained and why I've appropriated that word. Because usually that word is meant to say, like some people say derisively, conspiracy candy, as in stuff that's entertaining but not doomy enough. It's not telling you to run for the hills. So if you're talking about Bat Squatch and not MREs and NWO troops, then you're somehow in the wrong. But that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm looking at conspiratainment as like an umbrella genre where you should have the right to be wrong. You can't have a scientific method if you're not allowed to arrive at erroneous conclusions. Part of arriving at truth is finding out what isn't right. So the term conspiratained I'm appropriating because they've used it in a negative sense, when in all actuality, the MSM has been the biggest purveyor of conspiracy theories from day one. And what they do is they try to monopolize culture. They want to monopolize entertainment. So it's okay to have Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, X-Files, and many other shows that are going into the same borderline content. But they want to monopolize that so nobody takes it too far. So this is why at the end of the rabbit hole of X-Files, it's aliens and not something really far out like, I don't know, Flat Earth or something. So they hate the idea that people are actually entertained by deconstructing lies and propaganda, more than they are actually entertained by the entertainment itself. So the premise of the book Conspiratained is that free speech needs to be protected even at the cost of some people being wrong. That the freedom to think implies a freedom to be wrong. And that eliminating wrongthink is actually encouraging ignorance over curiosity and investigation. And we live at a time where obviously books are burning. Every single day, channels are being taken down. That's the moral equivalent to burning a book. But in a more real sense, they are purging quite a lot of digital content. So lately, what I've been comparing what we're doing to is Mystery Science Theater 3000, because ever since the lockdown started, we were pretty much pulled into the world stage. So you couldn't really be an outsider just criticizing, the different ideologies and beliefs and the different way people are being radicalized, the ridiculous things are being conned into believing. No, now we've been drafted into it. So Mystery Science Theater is a show about a captive audience forced to watch bad science fiction. And their way of coping is to comment on it and to mock what they see on the screen. And that's kind of what we've been from day one. From day one, our group veered away from similar YouTube channels that were hyper-focused on how the world was going to end that year. Was it plasma apocalypse? Whatever it happened to be the particular year, I think Nibiru, 2012, you always have these different things with doom attached, or a heavy religious angle to it. But I wasn't really into the religious stuff, the doom saying, the stuff that makes it, boring, or if not boring, just more or less simplistic. So here we are just examining the world stage critically as though it were a movie, because it is a movie or something like that. I mean, it pretty much is. You could consider most of it to be, and that's one of the points we've been making. There is a metascript, and we have been identifying the metascriptors. And I might be wrong, but I doubt it. And I'll explain in the book, how I have arrived at these various conclusions. And that's one of the other aspects of the book is I'm explaining what we're doing with media deconstruction, this metascript concept, and how it's different from the general conspiracy theory out there and what it presupposes. So it's definitely going to contain everything that all of my previous books have contained, but I've kind of just distilled it down. So everything I've said about the new concept of sin having been introduced as the virus, everything I've said about the new scientific paradigm just being the old one grafted onto the new one, I've pretty much brought everything back into this book. The Auto Hoaxer Handbook, condensed, clarified things. So all the ideas that they would like to burn are in this book. So the infinite plan, and that's what I call the newsletter, is to keep this thing going indefinitely. The think tank, the topics, the areas of discourse, and all of the different things that we're into as far as production, memes, art, animations, whatever it is that we happen to be working on. So I just decided that this would be the week. So starting next week, we'll have the schedule show clock, but this is a week that I'm really focusing on development, developing the site, improving all the things. So I'm open to any kind of constructive criticism. So I know that some people were having issues with the CAPTCHA, for example. Like, I don't like CAPTCHA. I can't solve CAPTCHA. And I hate the implication that I'm a robot. It's like, no, it's my site. Just let me type. So this is the Infinite Plane Media Forum, which again, I think is going to be a very productive place. Because, like I said, with Discord, as much as I love Discord, it all does kind of disappear rapidly. You have to scroll up for hours to see stuff. The newsletter, that's another thing. So one of the the Flat Earth Report was a podcast started in 2017, mainly focused on fakery up above with the space program, and also the flat earthers themselves and the media's response to the topic, their conspicuous marginalization of it, their refusal to even answer basic questions. So the Flat Earth Report had been based on a news aggregator that, for some reason, their servers burned down last week. So I have a new one, and the new one is a whole lot better. It basically, what I'm doing is I'm aggregating all of the relevant news, the stuff we discuss, on a couple of sites. And the newsletters, which you can subscribe to, will have the articles and then my comments on them. Like, for example, I have an article here about how they're in space right now doing I guess they're changing out the solar panels. 2 NASA astronauts are conducting the 237th spacewalk outside the station on Saturday. Now, the reason why this is significant is we have been talking about the role of the space station in this meta-scripted drama. how it's kind of insinuated in Space Odyssey 2001, which was also more or less foreshadowing the 9/11 Twin Towers attacks. So it's kind of fascinating here that they're highlighting 237, this being, of course, the moon room in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. 237 is the room where, allegedly, that's the reference to the area where the moon landings were staged, by Stanley Kubrick. So anyway, we've been paying attention to a lot of these little stories, metascripts, and narratives that just seem to be force memed out there. Things that, like the 846 phenomenon, if you dig into the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin event and all the symbolism there. But I keep up with the stuff through news aggregators up to the minute. And so if you're on my newsletter, you're generally going to be up to speed with all of that. We have some more work also that's going to be done so if you're on the Patreon or in the Discord, you'll get links. We have the mind maps that we have developed this year or last year. And the mind maps are basically ways to show how all these things are indeed connected. That it's not even hyperbole, that these patterns exist. And so I've been documenting these patterns on these, the equivalent of having note cards with yarn and bulletin boards all over my walls with news clippings, but it's all digital. I'm working on a couple more of these, and these are basically following the major plot points and events of the 20th century and beyond that show a consistent script writer or script writers or God or the devil. But there is something here. There is a pattern, and that's the part that is undeniable. And the pattern is a matter of public record. It's searchable, and the connections that we make, the inferences we make, aren't coming out of some books on how to do numerology. It's all coming out of, usage. We're deciphering, quite literally, this metascripted story. Even last year, look at this here. In 2019, we were talking about the significance of the event surrounding the so-called death of Nipsey Hussle and how it was foreshadowing the emergence of a cashless society. Like, these were things that we were able to extrapolate from stories published in TMZ. There is a great deal of evidence that what we're looking at here is, it's pretty much a script, and we're doing analysis of the subtext. And we're not supposed to be noticing this type of stuff. Now I have a couple more. This one here is called Coincidence Theory 113, and it shows all of the major events, major psychological operations as they relate to this script from 1906 to 2020. I'm working on another one, which will start here soon in a couple of days, that focuses exclusively on the space papacy and the space popes. So we've got Musk, Branson, and Bezos, and I've been discussing these individuals lately and what they're based on as far as their archetypes. How Musk is clearly a creation of von Braun. Branson seems to be based off of that character in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Zeboff, the blonde, really egregious, really gregarious, happy space guy with the perpetual smile. He looks exactly like Branson. And I think Jeff Bezos is more than likely scripted along the same storyline as The Man Who Fell to Earth, the storyline there about the alien from Mars landing in New Mexico and using his alien tech to amass a great fortune. And of course, the richest man in the world, Bezos, like the character in The Man Who Fell to Earth, of course, David Bowie, whose music actually tracks along with the space program from day one of Apollo. But both of these characters, Bowie and Bezos, have the crazy eye symbol just right there on their face. But we're going through the scripts, which is what I want to talk about. It's the same thing with Donald Trump. We do have some interesting bits of, someone has described it as the 58 matrix. And the 58 matrix is this curious set of synchronicities or coincidences around Donald Trump, showing that he was more or less inserted into the world stage, when he was at the age of 12, before he was anybody. And that's one of the basic stories here. There are some developments and things that I could add to this, which I'm going to. That's why I'm taking this week. I'm not taking the week off, but I'm changing my focus for the week. So I want to consolidate all of this stuff because we do have quite a collection of, if nothing else, a whole lot of creepy coincidences. And at this point, it's undeniable. You know, the burden of proof has been shifted. So that's one of 3 or 4 mind maps that we're going to be working on this week. Hoaxahana says Songbird movie was released 12/11. Well, the Songbird movie uses a phoenix. Now, one thing I don't do with patterns is I never add or divide or change anything. Because some will say, well, this word and that word, if you take them through the calculator, add to 137. It's like, that doesn't make the case stronger, even though it might be true. Because I'm not trying to do anything other than present material based on what they've said. So like, this is your script. So they can't tell me I'm confabulating or cherry picking. Not at all. In fact, all I'm doing is paying attention. I can go on through your comments. Again, you can always message me also. We have a Telegram, which has about 3,000 members in there. So there's a lot of people in there. So you're free to go in there, say whatever you want. I don't regulate it. The chat room's open. It used to be about 4,000 people. People have left, but that's fine. You know, as long as there's more than just me, I'll keep it open. So I put a link in the chat if you want to join that. Now, you have to see this. There's just so much strangeness going on with the... Okay, so a Billy Ray Cyrus lookalike prophet insists that Trump is still president. And then you have another one here, Q Into the Storm, HBO documentary investigates QAnon. So, and then one more. Timothy Hale Cusinelli, you know, crisis actors in their names. Navy probe finds a contractor in the Capitol insurrection was a Nazi sympathizer. So there's 3 things here. One, they're trying to tell us that there's a guy here. His name is, oh, weird. This is insane. I actually recognize the commenter on this thumbnail. Anyway, they're making the big case here, a big deal about this QAnoner who looks like Billy Ray Cyrus, and he's considered to be something of a prophet or something. And they're trying to suggest, anyway, this is the new face of conspiracy theorists. It's like, okay, so these people are absolutely insane and delusional, and they're calling him a flat earther. So you got Billy Ray Cyrus, mullet era, who's a flat earther, still pushing QAnon. And this is like considered to be noteworthy. And here's another one. And these are just characters being focused on by HBO and the MSM. So this individual seems like a nice guy, dog lover. And I think they're trying to paint a picture, and they have been. And it's really getting to be pretty obvious here. Every other article is a hit piece. Former QAnon believer shares bonker conspiracy theory about Biden. But for me, it's like, wait, how is it a bonkers conspiracy theory when I look at the guy's neck and it's constantly, well, fading in and out of existence? Like his head is clearly a mask at some points. He appears straight holographic at times. So I'm always like wondering, you know, are they baiting people to arrive at these conclusions they can be attacked for? But anyway, it's like, look, how to talk with a conspiracy theorist, what the experts recommend. Opinion. To control online information, we need real-world solutions. So they want to intervene here. And the UN has already hired 110,000 information volunteers to troll around to find things to be offended by so they can then snitch on you. So this is just a continuation of the same. And I've been on this topic all day about censorship and how it's been ramping up on the basis of various psyops. And I've been on it today in particular because it's the 2nd anniversary of the Christchurch shooting, which was one of the most eminently debunkable psyops of all time. I mean, we debunked it before the news had finished reporting on the story. No, it's just a repeat of Anders Breivik. There's going to be multiple drills coinciding with it, and a whole lot of incongruent actions and behaviors from crisis actors. And we were right. There were videos. We have a documentary on this. There were videos from Christchurch where dead people got off the ground. A bloody guy walking down the street, and someone behind him has a spray bottle filled up with a red fluid. You know, we have enough. And then also we have the strain. This is not just drills at the same time. The shooter was caught when 2 police officers in body armor ran him off the road and pulled him out of his car. Well, just so happened to be the case that that day, those 2 officers were doing a drill on how to apprehend a subject in a moving vehicle. So they were already dressed up and ready for the opportunity to stop somebody. And it played out just like the drill. And what's more, the witness was an actress in New Zealand. A known crisis actress was the only witness. So this was 2 years ago, and they used this to censor BitChute and 8chan and 4chan. And I don't care about those sites, but it's like, don't you want to get rid of these people? You chase them off YouTube, they go to BitChute, and now they kill BitChute. This is why I don't retreat. This is why we have not retreated since 2017. We have not retreated despite dozens of channels being taken down, because that's what they want. If they can ghettoize you somewhere, marginalize you, then they can cut you off from any kind of chance of growing your network. So, although I am in all these other places, I tend to stay here in YouTube. This is where it's at TV says social media companies left that video up. They made a huge deal about how the video was being circulated, and anybody who shared it would go to jail. They put a lot of fear in people because they didn't want you to look. Now, the reason why they didn't want you to look is because it looks so fake. So after Christchurch, there were a couple of there was a couple things that were being banned. So you had let's see here. They called it the social media platform where neo-Nazis can view the attacks. And they also said that there was going to be, or they were seeing increasing gamification of mass murder. Like, whoever heard of such a thing? YouTube, it says here, YouTube, it has an alternative to recruit foot soldiers. It's called BitChute, a neo-Nazi video sharing site. I mean, they characterize everything that's not mainstream as neo-Nazi. Meanwhile, they want to censor you, burn books, and quarantine society and let the government take over everything. A little bit of projection. But anyway, this is something else too. The reason why you can't just pick up your YouTube phone. Look, free speech website criticized as a recruiting ground for neo-Nazis. Now, if you can't just pick up your YouTube phone and live stream if a UFO is over your house, guess why? You cannot broadcast that UFO because you don't have 1,000 subs. I cannot get 1,000 subs. They make sure of it. And that's because they don't want you to be streaming mobily. You can stream it at your desktop. But it used to just be open season. If you wanted to stream, you just hit go and you could go. But they raised the bar to 1,000 subs to reduce the possibility of somebody with the wrong opinions live streaming. And so they took the opportunity of the Brenton Tarrant out there in New Zealand, this hoax. They used this event as a pretext to go ahead and say, all right, we got to clamp down on live streaming. The manifesto, I thought, was sort of plagiarized. He ought to be tried for plagiarism. If they haven't executed him yet, try him for plagiarism. He totally ripped off of the Unabomber and Anders Breivik. Okay, let me get back to this really quick. Billy Ray Cyrus lookalike prophet insists that Trump is still the president. He says you cannot pray for President Joe Biden because there's no such man. He does not exist. Okay, so I'm going to play a little clip, I guess. I mean, if you want to hear what he sounds like, I'm just not sure.
Pray for the president.
I'm not sure what the point of this is. It's a 33-second video, but it's being promoted as your typical wrong thinker.
Yes, Donald Trump. Pray for him. People say we need to pray for the president. You can pray for the office of the president. You can pray for a man named Joe Biden, but you cannot pray for President Joe Biden because there's no such man. He doesn't exist, and he knows he don't exist. And Brother Steve, his handlers know he don't exist. They all know he's not real.
All right, so that might sound a little crazy until you look at Joe Biden. And so many people are noticing. They're like, well, sometimes he has earlobes, sometimes he doesn't. He used to have bright blue eyes, and now it looks like he has eyes made of coal. Like, when did that happen and how? All right. Well, phones are open. So if you want to call in, 833-311-1984. We no longer have that ridiculous ringer from Google Phones. Okay, so this is a comedian. His name is Jim Breuer. Jim Breuer he's one of the top touring stand-up comedians. He has the Jim Breuer podcast. 142,000 followers on Twitter. Listen to what he had to say about Joe Biden.
Had a perfectly round chin, and he had bright blue eyes. And now he's got black eyes and a big cleft in his chin. It's just, I don't know what happened to him, but he had beautiful blue eyes, and now he's got black eyes, and now he's got this weird cleft chin. Whew. Boy.
So, again, this is Jim Breuer, a comedian, just stating the obvious. I'm surprised he got away with that. Posel says lots of entities can enter the Biden skin suit. Yeah, it could be any number of people. Really. It could be an animatronic. I'm still kind of in Camp Bo. I think that Joe Biden might be Bo Biden, wearing a whole headpiece. And what's more, I think that it's likely that Joe Biden is still alive, if that's the case. And I'm basing this on the skull. I happen to think that Joe Biden's skull, now as President Joe Biden, looks more like Bo Biden's skull than it does Vice President Biden's skull. And some people are pointing their fingers at Jim Carrey. Like, would he be doing something like this to us? I don't see why not. All right, someone says, check out this 33. Okay, county capitol riot suspect spotted. Yeah, this hunt for these suspects, it reminds me of the hunt for bin Laden, rounding up the terrorists. Do you remember how I talked about how 3/11 is a parallel to 9/11, that we're just reliving it? It's a new cycle. It's just recycled. Universal threat, universal pretext, new Patriot Act. The Quran has been replaced by QAnon. White Al-Qaeda or vanilla ISIS has replaced Al-Qaeda and ISIS. I mean, this is what they've done. They've just rebranded the enemy within, the domestic terrorists within. And what we're seeing right now is the rounding up of all the bad guys who did 9/11. Like, they are treating January 6th like it was a 9/11 attack. And these are all just ridiculous actors. Voice actors, characters. This is such a false flag. I want to see the footage where the lady with the flag that says "Don't tread on me" gets tread on, because I just don't believe it. And here you have a siege where they're staying in between the velvet ropes. So I think it's such a farce, though, that they're all being hunted down to keep us safe from an insurrection. And then this guy was at an insurrection, and he's got a Hitler mustache. Like, that can't be real. Like, I refuse to believe that this is a real news story. Like, oh yeah, one of the guys, a Navy veteran and something like this, who's at the riots, has been found, and on social media he's pledging allegiance to Hitler, and he's got Hitler's hair. And he's got the stash. I mean, he's attempting to grow it out. That's got to be an actor. All right, okay, the next one. This is, again, I'm just going through some of these, obviously, fake on stage characters. Oh, by the way, if you haven't seen it, The Apostasy Show, episode 5, streamed this morning if you missed it, and it actually kind of ran long, almost 90 minutes. A great podcast. If it's every Monday morning, so it's kind of a new habit of mine. It's mirrored over there at Dark Matter. I'm going to put it on the playlist. If you want to hear it, I'll play it after. This is where it's at. It says, the guy who played ball on Stargate Atlantis died in a kiteboarding accident. Cliff Simon, Stargate SG-1 actor, dead following a kiteboarding accident. The villain's name is Baal, which is the name of the god of the elite. They're all Baal worshippers. Shaft of Baal, obelisk. It's the Earth god. Okay, so Baal Earth, in fact, is, I think, just phonetically causing us to pay homage to their deity. It says he passed away on Tuesday, March 9th, after a tragic kiteboarding accident. Now, is this an extraordinary claim? I always ask that question. If it's from the media, you might say yes. I'll have to look into it, timing and everything, to see if there's anything here to suggest this could be something of a hoax. But we've been pretty much vindicated, and I'm going to go through this. One of the things about Conspiratained is I'm actually going through these mind maps, and I'm explaining all of these unbelievable coincidences in very clear terms, just so, you know, we're not connecting things that aren't connected. And it would take a great deal of, well, coincidence theory to explain it away. And I think this last week and a half, we really touched on something. I think this, including the conversation of specific directors, you know, who's behind it. We've analyzed the Batman franchise and its uncanny predictions about the future. In fact, someone sent me something else about that. More predictive programming. I think it was Bane kneeling on somebody's neck. I got to find the clip. Someone says, what the F is kiteboarding? Kiteboarding is, yeah, just a form of windsurfing. I don't know if there's anything right off the bat that would make it hoaxy, though. I mean, the burden of proof with extraordinary claims is on the media, but if something's not that out of the ordinary, you kind of have to find something. And generally, the hoax is given away in the narrative, in the story. I won't be surprised if we have a Princess Diana-like death soon. Here is Meghan Markle, or Markle, excuse me. Meghan Markle is, or has been, photographed multiple times in identical poses, in identical wardrobes to those of Diana, Princess Diana. Now, Princess Diana, there's a couple theories. She's dead, she's not dead. Illuminati sacrifice rammed into the 13th pillar, 13 being a goddess number. Now there's a torch on a black pentagram where she died, or didn't die. There is a conspiracy theory about this one, that she and JFK Jr. both faked their deaths to go fight the deep state. So she could be turning up again. Or not. But the fact that Meghan is positioned and dressed identically just kind of suggests that this is probably some kind of a ritual being played out. All right, Ready or Not says, like after 6 movies of racing cars and not crashing one time, Paul Walker dies of a car crash. Yeah, there's quite a lot about the Paul Walker one to suggest that it was a complete hoax. Quite a lot. I think he was just on his way to a charity event or something. And some people have even identified a few things about who he is now. Now, there is this ridiculous theory that I don't even want to get into, but the theory is that Princess Diana, not only is she not dead, but she's not even Princess Diana, but she's actually the alter ego of David Furnish. And the whole family knows it, the royal family and everyone. David Furnish being the husband of Elton John, which is kind of an awkward thing all around, if true. Especially awkward for JFK Jr., who it is rumored, had a fling with Princess Diana. And I'm like, you can't tell me that JFK Jr. was hooking up with Elton John's husband back in the 90s. I mean, it's crazy. If you look at none of these some of these conspiracy theories, I should say, cancel out others. So, none of them are set in stone. If something contradicts something, something has to go. By the way, the people who don't believe in conspiracy theory conjecture are probably laying out on the beach right now with masks on. I mean, this is the state of the new normal. I got a picture on the screen of an individual tanning everything but his groin and his face, because he's got a face diaper. Getting a tan like that, how that's going to look? We were photoshopping this as a joke. We were making memes about this 9 months ago. Now it's real. All right, phones open. 833-311-1984. Let me see if I have any voicemails. You can also leave voicemails if you go to timosmond.cc. There's a place there where you can actually, it sends you right over to where you can leave voicemails over there at Anchor FM. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I have if anybody's left anything here. And by the way, when I return, that is next week when we are back with the relaunch and the set schedule, I'm going to have a mailbag. I'm going to do the voicemail thing. I'm going to be also more responsive to emails. So I'm going to have basically an Ask Me Anything form on the site. I get a lot of great comments on YouTube and also through Patreon, and I want to kind of consolidate it all. And I don't want to miss anything. All right, let's see what else we have. I'm going through the Twitter feed. Some great channels out there who have identified a lot of the same patterns we have. And, Jim Carrey, in many of his movies, has been heavily encoded with this predicting of not only 9/11, but 3/11, this corona thing. If you're looking on the screen, there's a channel on Instagram you can follow. It's called Vue Shield. VUE Shield. I was describing this last night. It's just a lot of very pretty people putting plastic bubbles over their faces. It's like models. So these aren't freaks at Walmart who watch too much CNN. No, these are models who are making fashion statements about putting plastic bubbles over their faces. And if the models are doing it, everybody else is going to do it. Let's see what else we have here. Going through your comments. Yeah, it is too warped for Diana to be David Furnish. I'm gonna go with Diana faked her death, or it was a ritual sacrifice. I mean, 13th pillar. What are the odds? There's just way too many synchronicities and coincidences to go over right this minute. But also, I've been on this debate, and I like to debate them publicly, and this is just an observation, that prior to 2015, the dark side of the Earth, as in night, was dark at night. So from the space station, it would just go dark. And so you would have these periods where it's just black. And so here you can see an image on the screen where it's black on the other side, just pure darkness. And about 2015, 2016, suddenly we started seeing it as lit up. And so I started asking, believers, how do you make sense of this? Isn't there a discrepancy? Is Earth dark at night, or is it lit as seen from space? And they said that, oh, this just shows you're ignorant about cameras and exposure time. And so I said, no, this is live. This is from their live feed. And they really don't have any answers to whether or not these lights can be observed from space. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see I'm kind of, I ask these questions, and generally people just disappear when they realize they don't have any answers. Now, we did predict spacesuits. So if you've been listening to this channel since 2019, actually 2020, right when COVID started, actually, I was saying this is part of ushering us into the space age. Get ready for the normalization of spacesuits. Well, they're here. Spacesuits are here. Some of these suits, like there's this inflatable one I'm looking at now. This guy's walking through a Walmart, and he looks like one of the Minions. It's a big yellow Minion-shaped suit with a visor in front. You know, I was thinking about how a couple of years ago, in my city anyway, they banned plastic bags. And then they took away the paper bags. And I used the paper bags because I would ship artwork, because they fit. You know, you can put a 16 by 20 canvas in a paper bag and just fold it over. Well, they got rid of the paper bags because environment. Then they got rid of the plastic bags because of environment. Like, everything's to save the environment. This argument means nothing. So for months there, I'm carrying groceries. Like, you know, everybody has to see what I'm buying, and I carry it up the street for months. And I'm like, okay, this is just showing you how powerful they are. And only half the people are complaining. It's like, and then so my point is this. Then they say, if you bring your own bags, you should know that your cloth bags are actually worse for the environment than plastic bags. So I'm like, well, what do you want us to do? Plastic bags, cloth bags? No bags is the answer. So they were already affecting our lives. And they realized, wait a minute, if we tell them to carry their groceries, they will. If we tell them no paper bags, if we give them no options, they'll jump. They'll say how high if we tell them to jump, in other words. They've been doing this for so much time that I think they figured it out, that they can push our buttons. So they went from taking away our shopping bags to now you can't even go to the store unless you're wearing a mask. And now that we're wearing our masks and we're in the stores, now we have the option, paper or plastic. So they gave it all back. I'm like, isn't that a step backward? And it's because they didn't want us to use reusable things, because then you're bringing COVID in and out of the store. So now, for health reasons, we're destroying the planet again. It's an endless succession of no-win situations. All right. Also, let's see. Going through comments. If you want to subscribe, I'm going to put a link in the chat. If you want to share any information, somebody here says there's a History Channel show called The Proof is Out There. And they showed what we would instantly consider a P900 star footage, and they presented it as a UFO. Oh, that's interesting. You know, one of the things they did, okay, on the ISS footage, as seen from the ESA's vantage point, from their video camera or their CGI computer generating software, you can see a shadow on the Earth. So imagine this. You're in the space station, 250 miles above the Earth, and you're looking down, and there's a little black dot tracing along with you. And it aligns with the sun. So the entire time that I've been looking at this thing, it's like, okay, well, this is obviously meant to be a shadow, but it shouldn't be there. It physically couldn't happen. It's just impossible. The size of the space station, you know, the size of a football field at that height, given the sun's relative size, there's no way that shadow would make it to the Earth in any meaningful way that you could actually see it. Certainly not from the space station itself. And when you look at the size of the shadow, it would easily cover a city. So is there a shadow? Is there a dark patch? Is there an eclipse happening every 90 minutes? No. But they've been doing this for some time. They've been running this program that shows a shadow. So I kind of called them out on it, and I called it Smudgegate, because the explanation was, oh, there's a smudge on the camera lens. It's like, well, can't you do a spacewalk and go wipe the lens? Well, the smudge has been there for years. That's the problem. So I happen to think that it's just good computer animation, and they plugged in the coordinates of the sun and the space station, and it showed where the shadow would be. And I think the animator maybe was an animator and not a scientist, and didn't really think about whether or not that was the appropriate thing to do. So now here we are, 2021. You know, this Smudgegate was like 2019. Now that's showing up in the news as a UFO. There are some channels like Secure Team 10 who are saying that they see this UFO following the space station, going beneath the clouds and over the clouds. And I look at their footage and I'm like, wait a minute. They're just taking Smudgegate, my observation of a shadow that shouldn't be there. And now they're saying, no, that's actually video evidence of a UFO. And sadly, it's going to work. You know, the believers will believe that over anything that someone that they haven't vetted has to say. You know, so you can believe it's a UFO if you want to trust NASA. Super Recognizer, one of my favorite YouTube channels, has actually taken on the Justin Bieber is the weekend thing, and the only discrepancies are tour dates. And he leaves it open to the possibility that, as suggested in many of his videos and in his Super Bowl performance, that we may be looking at body doubles that lip sync to explain the discrepancies. And if you remember from the Super Bowl halftime show, he's surrounded by clones of himself, all of them wearing bandages on their head as though they just had plastic surgery. So it's pretty obvious what they're suggesting here. And this has been a consistent thing, even, and this is what Super Recognizer found, even Justin Bieber has had some skits involving himself being cloned, the use of doubles. Put a link in the chat if you want to check out that video. Okay, again, I put at the very beginning, I described the infinite plan, and I put forth the plan for what's going to, what the channel is going to look like in the future and moving forward. So the relaunch date that I have set, so I'm not closing or anything. There's still going to be the 24/7 stream, but my schedule is going to be a little erratic for the next week. So I'm setting the reset date for the 23rd. So 3/23. Everything that I've described at the beginning of this stream will be implemented. All of these upgrades. So again, appreciate everybody hanging out here tonight. And if you want to stay in touch with all of the developments, or if you want to take part in any of the projects we're working on, join Patreon and get into the Discord. So thanks again. I'm going to take off for now. I'll see you later.
You are listening to Infinite Plane Radio. Stick around for live call-in shows. Stay for the music and recent replays. Join us at infiniteplane.live for 24/7 live chat with other listeners.
Auto believers of the television programming.